Our friend John Escobar recently purchased 165 acres in southeastern Kansas. Looking at a map of John's property using Onyx, it was obvious there were already some good pinch points. Those points were made by the way the creek laid, the ag fields, and one ag field in relation to the other. There were some skinny woodlots in between those structures that were obvious deer travel corridors. The western half of John's property was a different story. It was almost contiguous cover. Looking at the properties to the east and west of John's farm, it was either a large ag field or cattle pasture, and it was clear John's farm was the largest block of cover in the area. Clay and I recently traveled to John's farm and spent the day touring the property. Our objective was to make it better hunting for John and his son by creating some pinch points in the western half of the property. I really enjoyed touring the eastern half of John's property. The obvious bottlenecks were just as true in person as they had been on a map, and John had his stands in good locations. But to utilize the whole property, we wanted to cross the creek and see the western half. And once we got there, it was a solid block of cover with lots of trails everywhere, but it was very difficult to predict which trail deer would be using. We saw some deer while walking through the western half, and I'd think, oh, they're on a primary trail. And I'd get up there and there'd be a sign. Walk another 10 or 20 or 30 yards, there'd be another trail. It was a maze of deer sign, and you're thinking, well, that's great, just hang a stand anywhere. But if you do that, hunters often get winded or alert deer before they see the deer. After walking the western half of John's property, not only looking at the topography, but several other features, I decided a series of food plots specifically designed would increase the huntability of that side of property in several ways. Rather than simply lay out a large food plot, I worked with the lay of the land and come up with a series of food plots that would use the features of the land to encourage deer to travel between the food plots. Huge bottleneck here in a little drain coming up. It's not a steep drain, but deer would want to travel that anyway. And that ties right into this. And that's not that many yards across there. And then we got the river in the edge of this plot here, making another bottleneck. We walk along part of that. I've got this pinched down smaller here and widening out for a reason, because that ties into this up here. This ties in to the bottleneck going this way. So when you really start thinking about it, there's a lot of magic happening here. This is the largest block of cover in the area, and I did not want to disturb the entire block. So I left a buffer of cover between the ag field and where I would start laying out food plots. So there'd be a large block of undisturbed cover, so deer would be very comfortable residing on the property. John's primarily a bow hunter, so the gaps between the plots were designed that deer passing through there would likely be within range. We talk frequently when we're walking around and there's a trail every 10, 20, 30 yards, whatever. You condense that down to going through there. You know how many deer are going to be? So if you blow this up, you can see I actually left a little opening there because I wanted it wide enough that the bucks were comfortable going through there. And we're just let that grow up in little brush and stuff. Of course, John and his son can also hunt the food plots when mature bucks are targeting those sources of quality forage. The plots were also designed based around John's current access points, so he could approach, hunt, and exit without alerting deer. And you're just staying out of here, except you're gonna mulch a trail all the way around, so you can just, whatever the wind direction is, you can get there really quietly. And what I would strongly suggest you do is, you know, if it's a west wind, you're coming in this way.
Oh yeah, that's all I usually do.
A key to any hunting improvement plan needs to be the consideration of how hunters are going to approach, hunt, and exit without alerting deer. It does no good to create this big attraction, but every time a hunter's going there, he blows deer out of the area. So yeah, I mean, this just makes your property super huntable, and even more so once the surrounding fields are harvested. Having the best cover in the neighborhood and having the only food once the local crops have been harvested means John's going to be set for some tremendous hunting opportunities.